So today we're going to show you how to apply for one of our graduate or internship programs. So once you've found the program you want to apply for, you simply hit apply for this job. This will take you to the Workday sign-in page. Now, chances are you won't have applied for a job with us before, so you won't actually be able to sign in, but you need to actually create an account. When you create an account, we recommend that you use your own personal address, email address, rather than your university email address, as you'll need to access Workday and your own personal emails later in the process. So for example, to track the progress of your application and to accept offers and contracts and things like that if we get to that stage. So reminder there, own personal email address if possible, rather than your university or college email address. Check the consent, make sure you've read our candidate privacy notice, which is about how we use your data, and select create an account. On the first stage of the application form, you'll see this quick apply screen. Here's where you have the option to upload a CV or not. For the majority of our programs, you don't need to upload a CV, so you can skip past this screen. However, if you're applying for one of our NatWest Markets programs, we ask that you please upload a combined CV and covering letter and upload that here. So you can either drop the file in or select file and search your CV and covering letter from your local file. If you click on next, you'll see if you have uploaded a CV for our NatWest Markets applicants, a lot of information will have pulled through from your CV. If you haven't, you'll have to complete this information. So if you complete the mandatory fields, always giving us as much information as possible. And this asks for your name, your home address, and again, that should be where you currently live, not your term time address. So where you're kind of based when you're at home, that might well be your parents' house. Country code and phone number should pre-populate with the country you're applying from. So you just need to then give us your own mobile phone number. And this is so we can contact you if you've got any questions throughout the application progress. How did you hear about us? This option may appear if you've come directly to the website. All you have to select here is other. Please do not select employer referral. And then answer the question, have you worked for NatWest Group or any of our subsidiary companies before? On the next screen, you'll see we ask for work experience. This is mandatory, so you should be able to give at least one example of work experience. If you say you currently work here, it will ask you to give a description of your role. If you don't, it will ask you to input the date where you're employed there till. That can be also any volunteering work you've done. It doesn't have to be paid work experience or a part-time job. When we get to the education section, the school or university is a free text field. So I went to Edinburgh University, so that's what I'll put in. The degree is what level of degree you studied. So I did a BA, Bachelor of Arts. The field of study, here we don't recommend you use the drop-down list because it's a very long list. What we recommend is you actually start to type the subject and then press enter. And this will give you a list of selections. So I typed history, so I can select art history, American history, music history. Or if I use Spanish as an example, it will just enter Spanish because there's only one option. If you studied joint honours, for example, I did accountancy and business studies, what I'd recommend is you pick one of those and then you can tell us about more. You can tell us more information about what you study later on, and I'll show you where that is. So I'm going to select business administration and business management. We don't select our candidates for our programs based on your degree subject. So don't worry too much if you can't find an exact match here. Just choose the closest applicable. Next, we ask you for your overall result of GPA. This, in more cases than not, unless you've already graduated, will need to be your predicted grade. A lot of penultimate year students, final year students will have a predicted grade. If you don't, you just need to make sure that you're on track for a 2-1, or for our RBS International program, a 2-2. And then this is the date that you started your degree and the date where you will finish your degree, or the date where you did finish your degree. You can add multiple levels of work experience and education if you need to, but if you're just studying one degree, you can leave it there. If you want to add an honours degree or something like an MBA or another period of study, you can do that by adding this, selecting this add button. Languages, so you may not speak any language. If that's the case, all you have to do is select the language that you do speak and mark that as your native language. And then obviously put in your comprehension, which I think for most people in their native language will be fluent. If you only have one language, put in your native language. But if you have other language skills, for example, French, Mandarin, German, Spanish, then please don't feel like you have to add your native language as well. You can add multiple languages again by using this add button. Ignore websites as that's not relevant for this application. Click on next. Next questions are all about your study, when you're going to graduate, and if there's any help you need as part of your application process. So current year of study, this is to make sure that we can determine if you're eligible for the programme. So for example, whether you're in your final year, whether you've graduated, whether you're in your penultimate year. The degree confirmation date is the date that you'll receive your qualification. This is not your graduation date, because quite often your graduation date is later. So you might be graduating in September 2021. Are you currently undertaking further study or postgrad degree? So in the screen before, you put in your degree that you're studying at the moment, but it may be likely that if you're doing a postgrad now, you want to give us information about your graduate degree, or you may be currently undertaking further study. If you're not, select no and move on to the next question. But if you are, select yes and give us the information. So this is a free text field, but here we'd like to know what degree you did, your degree confirmation date again, and the result you achieved. Here's where you can, if you would like, put more information about the degree that you were studying. For example, on the previous screen, because we couldn't enter a joint honours degree, you may want to put, I am currently studying business and accountancy as a joint honours. As I said, you don't have to give us that information, but the more information you give us, the better. Do you have any extenuating circumstances relating to your degree that may have resulted in you not having achieved your minimum criteria? So were you ill whilst you were taking your exams, or anything else like that, bereavement and that kind of thing? If you answer yes to this question, you will have to give us further details of those extenuating circumstances, and you may be asked to give us proof if you get to a later stage of the process. For example, if you were ill and were unable to take exams, or it impacted your result, then we might ask for a doctor's certificate. Would you consider working in another location to the one you've applied for? So all of our jobs are advertised in specific locations, but sometimes we have demand in one location for more than another. So you need to think about, if you're applying for a job in Edinburgh, would you consider working in Manchester or London? And if so, this is where you can detail that here. So if you answer yes, you can then give us your second or third preference of location. You don't have to do this. If you want to work in the location you've stated, just say no. Similarly, will you be willing to consider another business area if you're unsuccessful for your first choice? Because again, some of our programs get higher level of applications than others. So if you say yes to this, again, it will ask you to provide details of your second and or your third preference. If you know you definitely want to do the subjects you've applied for, then please select no. Next question, do you currently have the right to work in the location you've selected? This is around visas or visa sponsorship. So you do need proof of right to work in the country you've applied to. For some of our locations, including Jersey, Guernsey, and Isle of Man and Gibraltar, you will require a visa if you're not resident there. So in most cases, this will be yes. If the answer to that question is no, because you're applying from abroad, you will need to give us details of your current nationality and the visa that you require. We would also like you to provide your full name as it appears on your passport. This is in case we need to book travel for you as part of the programme, if you need to attend an assessment centre, things like that. What we've also asked for here is a secondary email address, especially if you've used your university or college email address to register. So again, that's about saying, actually, if we can't contact you on your college or email address, we'll try this email address, or vice versa. If you've given us a personal email address, but we're not hearing from you, we'll try your university address. We need an emergency contact name and telephone number, including the country code. And this is for whether when you're out kind of in work with us, especially for things like insight weeks and internships, which you're only with us for a short time, we need to know how we can contact someone in case of an emergency. Have you attended a NatWest group event? No. If you have, please select which one. Was this a university careers fair? This may be an online careers fair this year, one of our insight days, one of our webinars, one of our STEM women presentations. The next questions are all around social mobility. So we're asking, what is the highest level of your degree achieved by your parent or guardian? You do not have to answer these questions if you don't want to. But the options are at least one has a degree, qualifications below that level, no formal qualifications, don't know or prefer not to say. Next question is whether or not if you're eligible for free school meals, and then what type of school you attended between the ages of 11 and 16. The next form is all about checking that you are financially okay to work here. So we do a lot of pre-employment screening checks because we're a bank, and we do that to comply with our country legal and regulatory requirements. So this is all about credit and background checks that we will go on to complete if you're successful. So if you've ever been declared bankrupt, do you have proof of right to work in this country? Have you ever had any defaulted debt or county court judgments? Have you ever been subject of an administration order? And so on and so on. As well, we ask if you've ever been made redundant by NatWest Group or ever had your employment terminated. The next question is about consenting to us processing special category data. And that really applies if you need any special requirements or if you have a disability that means you need additional support. So if you don't need additional support or you have a disability which you need help with the online application, then just say no. If you do, you'll be asked to provide details of the support you require here so we can help you. But this is also part of the consent for us to use that data. Next one is if you'd like to receive relevant job opportunities for us in the future, select yes or no. And if you're currently employed, you can give us your current base salary, total salary, but again, this is non-mandatory, so you can just skip past that. Then finally, we'll ask you some questions around diversity and inclusion. Again, as part of some legal requirements, we have to collect some of this information. We collect your age, your gender, ethnicity. If you're applying in the UK, you can select your ethnicity or you can select prefer not to say. The same with religion. And then whether or not you have a disability. These questions may be different depending on the country you're applying to. But if you do not feel comfortable answering these questions, as I've done, you can say prefer not to say. None of this information is actually held against your actual application. It's just so we can aggregate in the background how many women are applying to our programs, are we attracting people with disabilities, and really to ensure that our application process is fair and inclusive. Then here you're asked to just consent to the way that we use your data. And then when you click on next, it will go on to submit your application. So that's the first part of the application process. If at any time you receive or you experience any difficulty applying for a role, we'd encourage you to get in touch with us through our social channels. You can also go to our early careers pages and look at our list of frequently asked questions. Again, the links to our early careers social channels are here. So if you have any issues with applying, or if any other questions about the programs that aren't asked here, please get in touch through social. Thanks.